This is a story of how my baby girl, who was admitted into Nemours Children's Hospital in Orlando, Florida, contracted meningitis 2 times and died from it under their care. This might be triggering to some, so this is your warning. Thank you for watching. Here you have Dr. Anna Sidney, who refused to do a second spinal tap on Dream to see if she still had meningitis. Here you have Dr. Caroline Chua, who refused to put on gloves when dealing with an IV because she said the IV was so small it was hard for her to grip it with gloves. Here you have Dr. Rochelle Gomes, who is a physician who stopped Dream's medication for the meningitis a few days early when she was supposed to be on the medication for 21 full days. Here you have Dr. Visawatan. The reason he's listed is because he was the physician in charge the morning I walked into Nemours, and Dream's head was the size of a bowling ball, and he did not notice, and he was there from the night before. On January 27, 2024, I had a micro baby weighing 1 pound 5 ounces, and she was transferred to Nemours Hospital less than a week later because the original hospital she was born at did not have the proper equipment, which was a PICC line, and that's what she needed. This was the same day she was transferred. Pay attention to her leg. 2 days after she was transferred to Nemours, I started noticing bruises on her body. When I asked the nurses where did these bruises came from, they said she came from HCA hospital that way. However, she didn't, and I have proof that she didn't, per the previous slide. This is a video of one of the nurses, as a lot of them never did wear gloves when handling my micro premature baby. As you will see in this video, she was touching her body without no gloves, and when I would ask, I would always get the same answer: I just scrubbed in. But they would scrub in and then touch their phones, touch their hair. You see how roughly she was moving her arm when she has an IV in it. As you see, she just touched her belly button. Now I want you to look carefully at my daughter's chest. And do you see the marks there as well? I asked about those marks too. They said she came with it, but that's not true. In the previous video, she was lighter. She was on so much different medication, it turned her complexion dark, which wasn't an issue, but that's just to show those marks did not come from HCA, and definitely the hands of the nurses and or physicians at Nemours. On this evening, I came and see my baby, and when I lift up the blanket, there was blood coming from her head. I called the nurses, and they all came running in with the doctor. Dr. Chua then took out the IV that she had and reattempted to put another IV back. As you can see, no gloves in sight, but I'm going to say allegedly because they're going to try to remove my video off of TikTok. But as you can see plain as day, Dr. Chua, this neonatal doctor who was rubbing her nose and her eyes, did not have on the gloves. You see the respiratory therapist and the nurse with gloves on, but Dr. Chua refused to put on the gloves, and when I asked her, she said the needle was very small and slippery, which is why she was not using a glove. On a separate morning that I came to visit Dream like I did every single day, I noticed red discoloration in her diaper. When I opened her diaper, I noticed she was urinating blood. I contacted the nurses urgently because I was scared, and they all ran in with the physician. As you can see, at Nemours Children's Hospital in Orlando, Florida, this was a common practice to handle micro premature babies with no gloves. There you have the nurse, there you have the physician, and there you have the assistant physician. Right there, dealing with my baby with no gloves, allegedly. On this day, the nurse was helping me wipe down my baby, and I was kind of confused why she told me not to remove the gauze from her arm while I was wiping her down. So I continued to wipe her down with the gauze, and when the nurse turned around, I removed the gauze, and guess what they were hiding from me? My baby had a fungus in her arm. The nurses or the physicians, no one could have explained to me or give me a reasonable answer to why my premature newborn had a hole of a fungus in her forearm. This is where Dr. Tweedy comes in. She briefly handled Dreamed before she was moved on another floor because they were short on physicians. Dr. Tweedy told me the hole in her arm came from a previous IV that Dream had in her arm, and when they removed it, it got infected. But it was only surface level. I don't know how. There's a hole in her arm. But this is what Dr. Tweedy told me, and they'll be putting antibiotics on the infection to make sure it goes away and it doesn't spread. They cleaned the wound, infection, whatever you want to call it. They cleaned it, they put a new gauze on it, and they wrapped her arm. And they said within 7 to 9 days, it should be gone. It did go away. But the point is, it came because too many hands were touching IVs without any gloves. Allegedly, right? Okay. On another one of my daily visits to Nemours Children's Hospital to see Dream, I realized that I never took off her caps that they would have. I noticed she would always have a different color, and it would be, you can tell someone was making them. And I thought they were so cute, but I just wanted to see her hair. And I pull off the pink cap, and what I saw disgusted me. Yes, it was cradle cap, but it was so much of it. And as a nurse, especially women nurses, why did you guys think it was okay to leave so much in her hair? Why did you not just wash it? It would have taken nothing but 5 minutes or less to wipe this out of her hair. I went outside and I asked the nurses if it was okay to wash my baby's hair. They said, sure, go ahead. Imagine. So, came back inside, I closed the door, and I got the little bucket that they would normally have after you deliver a baby, and I got some warm water, the Johnson & Johnson shampoo that they would have in a corner with all her, her other accessories, her blankets, stuff of that nature, and I washed my baby hair. It was so hard for you nurses at Nemours on that day. Look up the date for you to wash my baby's hair. At this time, she was a month old, 4 weeks old. It was so hard for you guys to just wash her hair. And you're not really even washing it, just wiping it off. So I did the best that I can do. And I wiped her hair. And one of the other nurses came in and she's like, let's try to put her on her stomach. I said, okay. And she put her on her stomach. As you can see, she was getting a blood transfusion. And I just wanted to take a picture of the after of me wiping her hair. It took nothing for you nurses to wipe my baby's hair. But this wasn't the first time they left her in filth. Yes, it's filth because they could have wiped my baby's hair. On this day I came in, and when I lifted up the blanket, Dream was crying. Of course I couldn't hear her, but this was her face. I called the nurse in to see if she can check on her why she was crying. And as you can see, first she changed her diaper. And what do we have here? Her arm was extremely swollen from the IV. Mind you, these are the very same nurses that check on the premature babies or the babies every hour or so. Only God knows how long she was there in pain, yelling. But because she had the tube and the oxygen down her throat, you can't hear her. Look at my baby's arm. Look at my premature baby's arm swollen from that IV. On another day, my daily visit at Nemours Children's Hospital, I came and I saw some white stuff on her shoulder, and I decided to lift her ears up. Imagine. Now, these are the very same nurses that are supposed to take care of our babies. I decided to take a wipe and wipe my baby down. I started with her ear, and of course, it was a little cold. Now, the bruises continued, by the way. As you can see, she has by this time, the IVs are gone from her arms, and she only has the PICC line on her foot, her leg, I should say, her thigh. But the bruises still continue. Do you see the bruise right there? You don't see no IV marks, right? The bruises continued, and I continued to ask about the bruises. Oh, because they're so tiny, whenever you turn them around, a bruise would happen. This is what they would tell me. I'm showing the dates because I also have her records, and I know every nurse and every doctor that saw her on every date of my videos. Can somebody tell me why on March 13th my baby had a green bruise on her arm? She had no IV. Why was my baby always full of bruises? Let's continue. Dream was growing beautifully. Like I said, she no longer had the IVs in her arm, and she only had the PICC line in her thigh. Her hair was growing. Her skin complexion was, I don't know what her skin complexion at this time was supposed to be, but, she was no longer that dark color, which was not an issue. The point was the medication was slowing down, and she was becoming better. When she was born, her lungs were not fully developed. So her left lung was fully developed at this time, and her right lung still had some work to go. Within a month, her lungs went from collapse to being strong. Well, one of them. Her bottom right lung still was collapsing, but they were getting stronger. My dreamy was getting strong. Until